Hello everyone and welcome to the Constructive Criticism Network. This network is here to help you improve at Magic the Gathering at every level. From Pauper Leagues to Top 1000 Mythic, we've got you covered. If you want to hear the entire network, head on over to our sponsor at puremtgo.com, where you can hear each and every show, each and every week, and check out their sponsor, MTGO Traders, and tell them that the CCMTG Network sent you. Now sit back, enjoy the show. From YouTube, podcasts, and more, here's this week's episode from ConstructiveCriticism.com. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 449 of Constructive Criticism. I can't believe it's been that long. Next week, 450, Abe. Can you believe you've been on this podcast for more than a year?
You know, it's the cadence of doing it is just so natural to me that you could tell me it's been like 5 years or 5 months, and either way, it would just be, I'd feel the same about it. I don't know. It's just so natural.
Mason, you have to be like approaching 200 plus, right?
Oh, I think I'm pretty. I would be surprised if I wasn't over 200. It's a lot like Severance, though, for me. I don't know if y'all have seen that show. I clock into the podcast, I do it, and then I clock out. You know, I'm there. It's not even like a job to me. This is so much fun. It just goes through.
Well, you know what doesn't have to be a job is getting better and improving. It can be something that just you make a part of your daily life. Abe, what have you been doing to be always improving the point of the show this week?
So this week, I've obviously the standard RC has been on the forefront of a lot of players' minds, myself included. This week, I've been actually getting the team of individuals I'm going to be working on the last crunch period with together and getting us all aligned and organized on goals. And really, that's been a lot of, I've talked about how I'm using goals personally to facilitate, having a better process. But really scaling that into, setting up, expectations for what I want to make sure everyone's goals, now that I'm working in a group to get a bunch of the work done, making sure that everyone is on board with that. And kind of that's forced me to be in a spot of refining a lot of those goals for myself and also considering, more of those goals. And then, again, prioritizing now that I have more people I'm helping organize, I can accomplish more, but also kind of there's more on the table to be accomplished. So it's really been a process week. As next, I guess this weekend is really going to be when I'm going to do the bulk of my legwork with them.
One of the things that I have tried to kind of not just promote on this podcast, but as myself, is the idea of teams having a coach or having that person that gets to do exactly what you just talked about. And one of the things that I offer in coaching, and we'll get into this in the main topic, is actually that process, goal-driven, the way that I like to put it to people is process-oriented, results-driven type of work when it comes to this type of stuff. And one of the things that I really love about you, Abe, is that when I hear you talk, you operate on that same axis, where it is the process drives the result, and then the result drives whether or not the process worked.
Yeah. I mean, it's always a function of, right? Results are a function of your process. So really trying to dig in on that because I know that, that's ultimately where those results come from. So,
yeah, I love it. Mason, for the visual listeners, you're sitting really still and you're outside. Is this an always improving moment for you? Have you been practicing holding still?
Yeah, I've just been doing the nothing happens scene from One Piece now for multiple minutes.
And your wisdom is off the hook because your mouth ain't moving.
Yeah. No, I'm at a house and the internet here is not so great right now, but I'm going to get upgraded by next. So it will be improved for the next always improving segment. Personal always improving segment actually comes from sort of just being realistic with stuff and just ultimately deciding what's sort of best for me. And what that meant is skipping the RC for this go around. Just between going full time with coaching, just been way more honestly successful and things that I had really first imagined. And it's been really hard to sort of balance getting practice and stuff like that. And just the amount of money it is for me personally to get from here to San Diego in a hotel room, get the standard deck and everything, even with like borrowing cards or whatever. It's just way too much. So I just decided that instead of like trying to like force myself to do this and sort of being miserable and not really put myself in the best spot to succeed, instead I'm just going to focus on putting in a bunch of time for standard, for understanding more things to help people that I'm coaching who are all preparing, and just saving myself the money and working on that balance that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks. So trying to figure out what does staying on top of things mean in this. And, the new RC circuit season with like having one format for everything, I think is going to make it really a lot easier for me. So I'm really excited for that. But it's just been a moment of like, I think if I go, I'd have a fun time. It would just be a ton of money, and I just wouldn't be able to really try. And I'd be like pretty frustrated myself, I think, even if I like, am acknowledging the fact that I couldn't put the time in. So that was my always improving moment, of just sort of being honest.
Can I piggyback on yours?
Sure.
Because mine is really similar, but like in a different vein. And I tweeted about this. I don't know if you guys saw my tweet about like, I wish more Magic players recognized when they can't do, like when they just don't have the bandwidth to do something. And I know that our listeners really struggle with this in a lot of different cases. They'll listen to the podcast and they'll be like, oh man, like, they'll even use like us as an example. Like, these guys are qualifying for every RC, and like, I want to do that. And like, the truth is I started a new job. I, had some really bad weeks of mental health. And so last week on the show, I talked about how I wasn't going to try my RCQ. I was just going to play blue-white and like practice a specific thing. Well, additionally to that, I've also decided just not to qualify for Dallas. So like, I have 2 more RCQs that I plan on playing in. One of them is a 1K, one of them is just a store that I want to support, but I don't actually plan on qualifying. And there's a couple reasons. One, one of them is my job, just like you, Mason. I work for a startup right now, similar to you. Like, you've started a new business, you want to dedicate, make sure that you understand your time and your commitments to that. I work for a startup right now, and I want to put my best foot forward, really make the startup successful. It has a lot of both monetary and like emotional value that I want to invest in it. And, because of that, it's like, okay, well, I'm already taking time off for San Diego. And I'd rather spend my time focusing on San Diego than worrying about Modern, a format that I won't even play next season, which is what all of the RCQs in Utah are. So for me, really similar to you, it's like, okay, I can play in these RCQs, enjoy my time, do my best with a deck that I already know in Modern, but just not plan on going to Dallas. And I think people don't do that enough in Magic. Like, they're really, they have this, and this was like a common complaint of the PPTQ seasons, is that like, you feel like you're losing something out by not playing. Like, the FOMO was real. And that's just not true. And I think that all 3 of us are telling you that this week.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's kind of funny that, you're talking about how you're going to be in San Diego and you've decided you're not going to like make Dallas a priority at all. Mason's talking about he's missing San Diego, and for me, that was literally my experience with Atlanta. I was like, I have so much going on with my job, with like, just my life, that I don't have time to really be playing RCQs. And I was able to play a couple, and I made some runs and like was trying, but I was allowing myself to not really make it the priority, right? To not really play every event and be okay with whatever happened. But you've got to be willing to do that. And that's a big always improving moment for anyone, really, is to understand and be realistic with yourself and what it is you want to accomplish and how that doesn't have to look some kind of way. I feel like, especially now that there is organized play and we're getting back, right? We're almost closing on the first, the first cycle of it. We're getting like, maybe we're only at the halfway point.
It's been since they were announced, and June is when the first thing started, because I won the RC in June.
I want to dive into what you just said, though, because like, I used to take every Modern season off. I just wouldn't play Modern season because like, I wanted Modern season, I think, was usually during the summer anyway, and like, my wife had summers off as a teacher, so I was like, okay, well, I'm just not going to play this season. I'm going to spend time with my wife. And I think that Magic, like, one, we don't have some kind of system right now where like, you get rewarded for qualifying for everything. So like, just pick your spots. Like, where do you want to go? Why do you want to go there? What is like? I think that is Dallas the Spain Pro Tour?
Yes.
So that might be a reason that you want to go to Dallas. I can't go to Spain. Like, there's no way I can go to Spain with my job. But I think that, Mason, what you're saying about like being honest internally about what you have time for and why you want to do it and like where it ranks in your priorities, people need to hear that going into this new era of organized play.
Yeah, and I want to make it. I agree with everything you said as well, Spencer. For what it's worth, I think we're on a very similar page, like you said about this. But I also want to note that like it is not lost on us that like it's a lot easier to say once you've played a pro tour or two. Like, I understand there is a big amount of FOMO on people who are just like, because I told somebody like, well, how are you gonna get to the pro tour? And I was like, I'll play a different one in the future. And they were like, oh yeah, I guess once you've done it, it's easier to like take a shot at missing one. Or I guess I should say lose your shot at one. And so it's definitely not lost on us, but I do think that you will be happier and succeed more, like Spencer was saying, if you make the shots at the right time and you practice and put good effort forward, as we're going to talk about coaching today in our main topic. But like the same way it's like working out, right? Like, you don't want to practice poor form and have bad form working out. You're going to get less out of it. I think a very similar thing is true of Magic. So I'm glad we could bring this episode to the people, or bring this topic, I should say, to the people.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's move on to some housekeeping items really quick. The first thing I want to say is, while looking for sponsors, you could have an awesome ad like Gilded Goose Gaming. Just like Gilded Goose Gaming, we are the golden egg of constructed podcasts, according to many Apestein. And Gilded Goose Gaming offers you all your gaming needs golden. They've got golden dice. They've got golden drinks. They've got everything in gold.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine anything other than using my sponsored Gilded Goose Gaming golden playmat. I mean, it's pretty heavy to carry around, but it blings out.
Yeah, the Gilded 100%. Goose Gaming golden. I can't think of another G. I really wanted to. I'm not gonna lie.
But golden gamepad.
There you go. Ooh, there you go. Yeah, Gilded Goose Gaming for all your gaming golden needs. They got those golden skins. They got those golden skin arena codes. All your skins are golden. So, thank you so much to Gilded Goose Gaming. Check them out at gildedgoosegaming.golden.goose.com. Secondly, we got some activity in the swag store, fam. The swag store for CCMTG. We had a desk mat ordered. We had multiple t-shirts ordered. We had a life pad ordered. Did you know that you, too, Mason, could rep CCMTG other than these awesome wristbands that people can grab from you at their next event that you're at? Or by becoming a patron of the show? You can just do it by going to the swag store on constructorcriticism.com. Pick up your desk mat. I just ordered a desk mat myself for work. I got all these like regional pro tour qualifier play mats and like all these from these top 8s and like reminding me that I'm a failure and didn't actually qualify for the pro tour from these. I didn't want those at work. I wanted just constructive criticism, always improving on a desk mat that I could sit there and just enjoy. So, if you want to support the podcast directly, it is a great way to do it. Another way to support the podcast directly is by going to patreon.com/ccmtg. No new patrons this week, but one of my favorite perks of the podcast that is the $10 benefit of free entry into the quarterly opens. People might be asking, well, what about this quarterly open? Well, we were looking for a sponsor. We have one. I have confirmed with them. It will be announced next week on the podcast on how we will be running a new open. I'm stoked for it, guys.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have another. I'll go. Yeah, I'm super excited to have another one of these events. It's been a really, really cool thing to see the people in the community and some from outside of it, really just battle it out for some cold hard credit. And a little bit of a trophy. all the things you'd ever want. And I mean, honestly, it was just a really cool place to be able to just battle and, you know, to really have something to apply yourself for. And it's just a really fun event. I'm really glad we're going to be able to do it again this quarter.
Yeah, our trophies are substantially bigger than the DreamHack trophies. Like, by magnitudes, really. Right, Mason?
Yeah, it's a lot easier to be bigger than nothing.
You know what doesn't have a value of nothing? Is the value of an MTG coach, which is our main topic today. And this one's interesting, and I want to call out a listener of the podcast for a tweet that I found really interesting. His name is Henry, and he talked about coaching and the differences in I don't want to misquote him, but basically this was a topic on Twitter this week, or last week, I should say, at the time of the recording. And all three of us we all coach in MTG, and I think that one of the things that I can say for sure is that I think that we all approach coaching differently than maybe some other people in the community, and kind of how we handle it. And one of the goals of this week's show is to help you understand what you should look for in a coach, what a coach should try, what kind of questions you should be asking your coach, and when maybe the types of things that a coach can help you with, and when you should be looking for one. Because honestly, there are times where I certainly, I can't speak for you two, but I'll go first, that I have had times where I've been like, hey, I don't think that I can help you as a coach. Like, I think that either you are a little advanced for this type of coaching, or the things that you are that you need to improve at, I am not the best person to be helping you with. And, I think that there are moments that those type of things are true. And understanding what the moments where you might get value out of a coach versus times where maybe you need something else is really important. So let's start with what to expect from a coach. And you guys want to round table this episode, kind of like what we all think of each of these points?
Sure.
It's a little bit different, but go ahead, Mason.
Yeah, I'll start here. I think that a thing that talking to a friend of the show, Andy Awkward, on the First Strike podcast about, and I think he had a really good analogy for it, which is, I always thought about it, but he just had a good way of putting it, is like, if I bought a math tutor for my kid and the math tutor just solved all the problems, I'd be so mad. Like, you didn't teach my kid anything. All you did was do the homework. And that is, sort of my opinions on when coaching is just playing leagues together. Reviewing VODs and doing that sort of thing is very helpful. And on exactly one occasion, I've played a league match with somebody because they just couldn't quite get it from VOD review, and that's fine. The exception proves the rule. But I've coached about 70-something people now, and in that time, I just do not play leagues because I believe that the tutor, your coach, is a lot like a personal trainer, and we should be trying to teach you ideas and install good habits and help you understand what matters in concepts so that you can succeed on your own. Ideally, you get to a point where you no longer need coaching, or you can go and leave for a long time and come back or find, different coaching, help with a different thing. And so lots of different stuff going on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, to add on to what Mason said, because I agree with everything he said, is there's the old adage, or maybe that's the wrong word, of, teaching a man to fish rather than, there's the old adage of teaching a man to fish, right? And I think that the goal of an MTG coach is exactly that. It is to put tools in front of you to use to get the results that you're looking for, or to get the outcomes that you're looking for, really, not even just the results. And one of the things that I have found really successful is using some of the tools from work. And we've talked about this in the show. Like, I've talked about objectives and key results on the podcast. We've talked about, Abe's talked about SMART goals, right? And just understanding the type of things that you can do and the tools that you can put in front of you to really achieve specific outcomes. And one of the things that I also think is like it is not a coach's job to make you win more matches, but one of the things that you should expect from your coach is to help you understand what you could be doing or why you might be losing matches. And I think those are different things. Abe?
Yeah, I think that, I don't know, I'm kind of a little bit more, and this might be because, personally, I've done a lot of coaching specifically around very targeted topics, because something for me is that I'm not, when I'm not in a position to really feel like I'm going to be coaching, the macro skills really well, and I'm pretty selective about the people who I work with on things on that level, because I find it hard sometimes to make sure that's valuable for a lot of people. I really am someone who focuses a lot on high level concepts, and some people that's really hard to work with. When you have a coach, you should really be that's like an expectation you should have, is that it's someone who's going to be able to actually work with you well. But playing matches is something that you do, or like at least in a coaching sense, is something that I do to understand where the very micro mistakes might be happening, and then kind of extrapolate that into, okay, well, let me get your perspective on how you're thinking about a problem, so that you can kind of build a sense, or at least for me, so I can build a sense of what it is that your process looks like, and then using that to kind of nudge you towards the areas where there's room for growth, or there's, you're close to a breakthrough, and I can see with, being able to see more of the game. A coach can really guide you to places where maybe you're close to that level of understanding and that level up moment, and they can really point you in the direction of it by seeing where it is you're thinking now and what it is you're thinking now, and giving you guidance to get there.
So I do think that we are talking about two different things, right? You're talking about micro versus a macro coaching, and I do think that, like, just to use Hammer Time as an example, just an hour and a half that I had with you on Hammer Time on a micro level actually did open up my understanding of Hammer Time quite a bit. But I do think that, like, I do think that a lot of that had to do with, like, I mean, we played one and a half matches total. Like, it wasn't a whole league. And I think that one of the things that we'll get into later is, like, a coach is not a playtesting partner, and we'll get into that later. But I don't think that's what you are doing on the micro level. You're opening their minds to different ways. So as Hammer Time, for example, opening up their minds to, like, different ways that the deck can operate, and what they might not be seeing when they mulligan, when they, like, these little micro things within an individualized archetype that's different from coaching on standard, or coaching on modern, or even coaching on magic, right? Those it's like a funnel.
Right. And I'm sure this is something that Mason experiences a lot when it comes to those times where he is doing sessions involving gameplay. Because I know Mason coaches a lot more than I ever have, and that's just because it's his job. But really using the game as a vessel to see the process, right? To peel back what's going on, or use it as a way to tell, the skills or the story of what it is that I'm looking at, and giving that as an example. That's really where gameplay and coaching, and I feel like that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about coaching there is, right? Is that coaching is having someone there to kind of tell you what it is you're doing wrong or right. But really it's about using, right? There is an amount of, I want to know what it is you're doing wrong or right, but a coach really digs into the why behind it and tries to help you structure things better so that you're making fewer of those mistakes, or you're, making sure you're making those correct decisions more often, and you're using those strengths to help you as well.
Yeah, I want to move on to the next part, which is why to get a coach. But Abe, you kind of started this, so I want to kick it to you. Like, what are some reasons that you might find yourself in a position to look for an MTG coach?
Yeah, I would say that the best times to get a coach are when you either know something that you need to learn a lot about, and you need to find an expert on it, right? You need to really supercharge your time and get the most out of it and make sure you're getting, the best opportunity to grow for that, or you're in a place where you know you need to know something but you don't know what it is, right? So it's either of those extremes where either you feel like you're at that plateau or you feel like you're at the start line, because at both of those places, that's where you're going to get the most value. Either they're going to give you that, that push through that barrier that's going to open up a new frontier of what it is you're looking at, or a good coach is going to be able to catch you up on all of this information that you need and really get you up and towards your potential faster than you would get on your own.
Yeah, I'll jump in on this one. I think that the way that I do coaching, and Mason, I'll pitch it to you next. Like, the way that I do coaching, I really focus on players that have found themselves in a plateau and people that need processes to get more out of their time. And those are the two things that I focus on. And, I think that those are things that, like you said, Abe, that I have expertise in. That I understand those moments, those feelings of the plateau, and where we can turn knobs, but then also the process side of things is literally what I do for a living. It is how I've been successful in my career, and it very well translates to Magic. The other thing that I will say that I don't think was mentioned here is I also think that we had this happening for a second, and I think it's a real shame that a complete charlatan was the focal point of this. But I actually think team coaching and team process coaching is something that I would really strive at, that we should have more of in Magic the Gathering. It is all over esports. It is everywhere, and there is a reason for it. However, the first person to really start to gain traction was a complete fake in Magic, and I think that's really unfortunate.
There's also just not teams in Magic, really, right?
Now,
all the best teams are all. It's just
the best players. Yeah.
Problem is so.
But I do think the reason I bring it up though, Mason, is because I have had success playing that role for the Team CCMG at the Pro Tour. Having Danny Cathro, Michael Hinderocker, and others register close, a V2 of what Channel Fireball is registering. I do believe that there are processes and things that you can do, and learning from what those great teams did and getting help in doing that we don't do enough. That is another place that I think that you could get a coach. And that comes down to not just you though as an individual, but your play group. If you have a group of X number of people that I have an opinion on the size of, to play test for an event, a big event, I also think that is another opportunity for coaching.
Yeah, so I guess my answer to the question is, when you kind of find yourself in a position where you are unable to sort of be making progress and you feel like you have exhausted the resources around you, right? I think grabbing a coach right when you first start playing competitive Magic is probably not the best way to do things, especially if you haven't played Magic before. And it is good to sort of build up a foundation and sort of get yourself to, a baseline level of understanding how Magic functions, how you play as a player. And you've been playing for, I would say at minimum, 6 months is the probably the least amount of time that I would suggest for somebody to do it before getting a coach on average. There's always exceptions to the rules, but I think that is to get a coach is you've exhausted the resources around you, your local scene, articles and stuff like that, and you feel like you're hitting a wall. And one of the things you can really do is help show you what you don't know. And eventually I think a lot of players hit a spot where they're like, I don't know what I don't know. And I feel like there's something I'm not getting here. Getting a session or two with a coach can be really helpful, or setting up a session with somebody who wants to try and figure out what your sort of weaknesses are and where you're lacking and help you push you in the right direction can be incredibly helpful and incredibly interesting. So that would be my answer to sort of why to get a coach.
Mason, back to you though. We kind of talked about a few of these, but is there anything that you think that people should look for in a coach?
The main thing I would look for is somebody who is like wants to help teach you how to fish versus giving you a fish. That is like the quickest and easiest way to say it. People who are like, for example, when Abe plays games with people, that is him figuring out how you're casting the line, to use the analogy. It is not Abe casting the line for you, right? So like, there is a difference, and I want to make sure that is clear. But if someone is just like, you did this wrong, you did this bad, or whatever, that is like something to look out for. And I don't want to jump ahead, but because we do have questions to ask, but those questions are much more about like things in coaching. But I would ask the coach, like, hey, what does, and that's something I get a lot, is what does coaching look like? What can I expect from working from you? And sort of, ask them for a process, because it is a job, an interaction, and it is fair to expect an amount of like structure and answer to the process, whatever. And they might have questions for you back, but that's, when they have questions for you back or really detailed, I think that's really a good sign.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in next, because I think that your last point is like the biggest thing for me. And I kind of mentioned earlier, but like my first session is substantially discounted, and it's because for me it's like a two-way interview. It's like, hey, what are we looking at? Is this a good fit for us? Because I don't want to waste your time, and I certainly don't want my time wasted. And I think that like understanding, okay, am I gonna be able to help you? And are you in a position where like I'm the right fit for you, or I think having a coach that like actually cares about that, rather than somebody just looking for like another however many dollars, is really important. And I do believe that will come across in their process in how they're trying to coach you. Mason, one of the things that you mentioned that I also want to highlight and I want to double down on is like a good coach in any type of environment. I have a personal mentor for product management in my job, and like sometimes it's hard to schedule our time. And like one of the things that really comes up is like he's listening to me, but he's also like making sure that I'm led rather than told what to do, because he doesn't know my exact situation. He doesn't know exactly what I'm going through in my job. He doesn't know the specifics of the problems that I'm trying to solve. The time that's the most valuable is like him, similar to how I talked about how Abe opens the lanes for different options when like he would coach me on Hammer, is like that's what you're looking for. If they're gonna just hammer you through the session, I don't think that is going to help you as much as you think. It's like looking at the back of the textbook for the answers to the quiz. So,
yeah, I think I think everything you guys have said has been spot on. The only thing I'll really add is that when it comes to what you're looking for in a coach, and this is something that I'm a big proponent of. I said there's a lot of people who like I wouldn't take on for really just basic things where I feel like I'm not going to be the best coach, because I know it's somewhere where I'm not really passionate about helping people improve, and it's not somewhere where I'm really that good at helping people improve at those levels. It's not really where my interest and attention has been for a long time. Is finding someone who you want to emulate, someone who you know what it is that they're bringing personally that you want to put into your game, right? What it is, why it is that this is the person that is going to be coaching you. I think that's really, really important for what you're looking for in who's coaching you. And, just someone who really seems to, I mean, and honestly, like, when it comes to the podcast, I think the fact that all three of us are coaches and also all three of us are really, we're all creating this content, it makes it easier to kind of identify with who is it of these three. If I were to go out and seek out coaching, who is it who's going to be able to be the biggest value to me, right? Who is it that I agree with the most, or who I think thinks like me the most? That can be a really, really important part of the process too, that you want to ascertain either when you're inquiring about coaching or just, kind of getting a sense for the person you're going to ask.
Yeah.
for what you're looking
Yeah,
for,
like-
because it
like
really
the-
is,
the
you know,
vibe
it's
fit
like a
is real.
mentorship. It's a relationship.
It is. Yeah, the vibe fit is real. Like for what it's worth, my product mentor is literally a guy that picked somebody else over me to work for a job. And like I emailed him after he said, like he emailed me, he's like, I'm just gonna be really transparent because I think this is important. My product mentor is a guy that emailed me and says, hey, it was down to you and this other guy. We picked this other guy. Here's the reason why. I want you to know I believe there's a future for you in this company. Like, I really hope that we get to work together one day. I'm really sorry. And my response to him was, that's really respectable. I really appreciate that. I want to, like, your people, and you sold me on you specifically, like, as a VP of, like, as a VP of product. I would like you to just coach me just on your spare time if you have time. And, like, that vibe fit was so much more important than everything else. The thing that Abe just said is so true. I want to also add, before we move on to the type of things that a coach can help with, Abe, you mentioned this podcast. You mentioned that they get to listen to us. They get to see, you know, they get to see your smile. They get to see how handsome Mason is. They get to see, you know, something about me. But this podcast, I mean, Henry said it better than I'll ever say it. He's like, I was like, I really hope that people don't feel like as a content creator, as a coach, that I'm trying to like scam people. And he's like, you have 450 episodes of a free podcast. I don't think anybody could ever call you a grifter. And I think that's true. I think that like a lot of the things that you might think you need a coach for, this podcast probably has an episode on. Like, probably in the last year in a lot of cases. So I want to call that out before we go on to the next topic, because I want to talk about the type of things a coach can help with. And Mason, I want to kick it to you first.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'll start with, the thing that happened, you know, a fair bit with me is somebody. There's a class of players who like they hear people talk about things, they don't know exactly what they mean, or they have a hard time mastering it when they hear it from like a podcast or an article, and they'll bring it up in coaching and we'll sort of work through and talk about the topic, because these coaching sessions are like sort of like you know, not as high quality as a TED talk, but like sort of like that, right? Like they're these free things, hear people talk about a topic or whatever, and sort of learn from it. But just like they'll get a chance to talk to the person, right? And when you get coaching from, you know, like one of us, for example, or from somebody like, you know, Reed Duke, Nathan Stewart, whoever, you get to talk to them and they can explain like their thought process behind it, what they think it means, what they sort of take from it. In the case of, you know, maybe you heard Nathan Stewart say something or me say something or Abe say something, and you're just like, oh yeah, like what did you mean by that? And you can really go over it. I think that is something that I can really help with, is sort of, you hear these big picture ideas on a podcast, and when we talk on the podcast, we unfortunately have to paint in big strokes. We can't get into finer details. There's too many types of people that listen, and we help nobody if we try to do that, right? So we just are forced to paint with these big brushes. But that's something that a coach can help with. Another thing is identifying weaknesses. Help teach you ideas and concepts that you haven't already understand or sort of master. Help work through to be more efficient with your time. One of the biggest things that I personally do is help people with things, with ways to practice that aren't just playing the games and going over that sort of thing. Help people be more efficient with their time, especially when they have a busy work-life schedule. And those sort of things I think are super important when it comes to like what a coach can help with. And I'm sure there are more. I don't want to spend all the time talking, so I'll pass off to one of y'all. But those are some of the big things that jump out.
Abe?
Yeah, I'll say like one of the biggest things that I've found, at least in the coaching sessions that I've done and the people who I've done long-term things with, is if you're someone who's at that stage where you're trying to like really hammer down a process, or you're at that plateau and you're trying to level up, the hardest thing is often to structure that for yourself, right? You know you want to grow, but and maybe even you've identified where it is you need to grow, right? You've had a session, you've talked with someone, or you kind of figured out where that weakness might be, but really laying out a plan from like point A to point B, and understanding what that's going to look like, and having someone there to kind of guide you and kind of make sure that you are, you know, on that path over time. That's something where some of my most successful coaching relationships has really succeeded in kind of laying out plans and being like, okay, what I want you to do this week is play with this kind of intent, or think about things this way, or come and do this and write about it, right? Like think about the game in this way actively so you can get to there. And so really there's a lot of things that coaching can help with, but I would say that one of the ones that's most overlooked in terms of when you have a coach who's really working with you is someone to provide you that roadmap, and can help you lay that out for yourself.
Yeah, the only thing that I have to add for what you said is just going to add on to what Abe literally just said, and that is holding you accountable. In that, not only they're helping you build that out for yourself, but they're also holding you accountable to that. Like, this is the thing that you said that we were going to work on. Was that our focus, or do we just play league matches? Like, it sounds so funny and like simple, but like Mason is going to talk about like personal trainer versus steroids in a little bit, and like that's true. So speaking of Mason, I want Mason, this is a point that you put in here. That's having an open-minded coaching.
Mm-hmm. I think that in Magic, it is like pretty often that people sort of approach one another with like this air of like sort of prove yourself before people really listen. And while I think that's generally a mistake or whatever, and we have a whole that, when it comes to coaching, I think there are sometimes coaches like myself will have like plans and lessons and homework and things like that. And I have a lot of different like routine and homework and things like that and assignments and like, working on like slideshows and everything like that to like make it really much more professional. But like having open mind to what they're willing to do, and someone I won't name, they were like, yeah, I feel like you're really helpful, but I don't know if this like homework is really going to help me. And so I said, listen, let's just be honest with each other. Let's do the next session. Do what I asked you. And if you think I really didn't help and it wasn't really helpful, you can have that session for free. And if you just still want to work with me, we'll go back to doing other things. But just give me a shot on this. I think it's going to be really helpful. And I had them do the homework of writing their own sideboard guide and doing a match summary and then sort of teach me a little bit about the matchup. And then they sort of did it like they were coaching me. And then I would talk to them about like, hey, this is where I think you maybe got something wrong. And this was really helpful because this person identified them in the first session that they were bad at macro game planning and they were bad at sideboarding. Those areas they're weak in. And so getting to do this and sort of be forced to teach somebody really helped. And sometimes your coaches and things like that are going to be asking you to do weird things, stuff like that. And it's good to sort of take a leap there. And also just the idea of like, there's a part 2 to this, which I don't know how we all feel like this too, but like it is sometimes hard for people to might need coaching or that like coaching could help or that they need to like assistance to get better at Magic. And I think that's sort of silly. Everyone needs help. Everyone has a helping hand. None of us got here without getting help from, let alone each other, but so many more other people. And so just to have an open mind to like, sometimes it's okay to need an extra hand.
Yeah, I echo everything you just said. And, I think that one of the things that I would add to this point specifically is like, I've had experiences where I go through the first session. I'm like, hey, like one of the things that I have people do, and I don't know if you guys do this, but one of the things that I have people do is rate themselves on a t-shirt scale on a few different areas in Magic. And then, we don't present those till the end. And I've had multiple sessions where it's like, hey, after this conversation, I think you have your grades on yourself wrong. And here's the things where I think that you're wrong on yourself, and here's the things that I could help with. And I've had people that really respond well to that, and people that are like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, like, you don't know me. And it's like, you came to me and asked for, like, my thoughts. And it's hard. Like, it's one, I think that you've done a huge step by, like, asking for help in an MTG coach. But I think that, like, understanding what that relationship looks like, I've coached a lot of Magic players that are better at Magic than me. And I think that needs to be called out that we haven't called out yet. Because that's not, my job isn't to be better at Magic than you as your coach. That is not my job. My job is to get you to where you want to be. Those are different things. And I think that like having an open mindset to coaching, part of that is this. You're nodding your head a lot, Abe, so I want to kick it to you.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing of, and I mean, it's experience you just kind of, because it is, it's, when Magic is a game, especially competitive Magic, is something where your your skill and your ability can be so tied to what you believe in yourself and to your own self-worth. In Magic, it can be a lot to be in a position of, being confronted with an idea that maybe you do have flaws in areas you thought you had strengths. And really just remembering that, if doing everything the exact same way you're doing it now, without having a coach really help you and look into things and give you ideas and perspectives on how to grow, if you're going to get better without doing that, you wouldn't have come to the coach, and the coach's job is going to be to push you outside of those boundaries, right? And to put you in positions of thinking differently than you have already. Because if you're approaching it the exact same way, that's the value of being open-minded, right? If you're approaching it the exact same way, you were going to get there, you wouldn't be here. And it's just important to remember, because it is confronting and it is hard sometimes to, feel like maybe you don't know as much as you thought you did, and that can, like, we all have egos. We all want to be good at Magic, especially if we're at the point we're coming for coaching. So it's just important to remember to leave that door and have it open.
I love my therapist, and she knows that I have this podcast. But like the number of times where I've like gotten mad at my therapist, like you just reminded me of this. Just like, you don't know what you're talking. Shut up! Like you don't know me. And she's like, I do. I think I probably know you better than most people. Abe, I'm gonna kick this one to you. Like, is there something that? Well, I feel like these next two are the same. So are you guys cool if we combine them?
Yeah, it works for me.
Yeah. What kind of things should you be asking for, or what kind of questions do you think you should be asking for in coaching? I'll start with you, Abe.
I'm going to say anything. I think you should come in with a very curious mind about what it is that you can be doing. And I think, I guess it should be anything but something specific. Like, you should really have thought and premeditated what it is you're trying to get out of things, such that you can get that information. Because really, Magic is such a deep and big game, and as a coach, we're going to have this amount of time to work with you on what it is you're bringing to the table, and also find things that maybe you're not aware of that we see from that interaction. But for it to be the most value to you, really coming with an idea of what it is you want to learn from that session, what it is you want to learn in the long run. Having questions, being curious about what it is you could be doing or things that you aren't sure about, to open that conversation, is going to make such a difference in the quality of session you're going to have.
Can I ask? It almost, and maybe this is just me listening, it almost felt like you had a contradiction in there. That they should both come with specific questions, but be open to hearing other thoughts. How do you reconcile those things?
So, this might come from my experience working in banking now, but really it's that you should come with questions, because it's going to be both ways, right? So in my job in banking, especially on like the retail level, someone comes in and they have a problem with their accounts. They have something they want to do, like get a loan or something. And then my job is to listen to them, tell me what that is, help them get on the path to do that, but also uncover the other things that maybe can be done for them, right? That's like my salesy role. So in the same vein, if you'd apply that to Magic, it's you're coming to me and you have this idea of what it is, you want to learn. But it's my job as a coach who's listening to you and really trying to understand more and dig deeper than that, to take that information and what you're talking about and use that as the catalyst for understanding the bigger picture and maybe digging into other areas and uncovering other areas that you're not thinking of. But the fact that you've come with something that you are thinking of makes it so much easier to get into that, rather than spending time kind of prying into the places where and trying to get to that first breakthrough point of, okay, this is where we're going to be learning, as opposed to you coming in with, hey, these are the things I want to know, and then uncovering the other needs along the way.
That was awesome, Abe. Mason, I'll kick it over to you. Like, is there anything you should ask for in coaching, or any questions that they should be asking?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of what's been said so far here. I think, one, you should ask as many questions as you sort of have. I have one person in particular who just asks me tons of questions, and we don't dwell on them for a long time unless we need to. And he's just, if he has one he wants to talk about it, he's like even just a little bit unsure, he's just like, hey, man, I heard y'all talk about this in the podcast, or I read this somewhere. this means this, or what does that mean? Or like, am I understanding this correctly? I think asking a bunch and having a good, open, honest relationship about something you're not unsure about is really good. I think another thing that's really good to ask for in coaching is ask like what they think that they can help you with, and sort of ask to go over like general Magic stuff. And it is okay to get like specialized coaching in like Hammer or Four Color, and that's like whatever the deck is, right? Like that sort of thing is good. But just like if you're gonna do one of those and you're gonna have someone for like a shorter period of time, maybe just have like specific questions ready to go so that they can stuff out. You mentioned before like having questions for people at the end. I always do at the start of the first session is I ask a bunch of little questions about things like, how do you think you're attacking and blocking, macro game playing, sideboarding, mulliganing, and a bunch of things. And the conversation we have from there really informs a lot. And I ask those questions to help prepare them. And I think they could ask questions. If you can have questions that are sort of inverse of that, they're like, hey, I think these sort of things about stuff, like maybe like, yeah, I really believe that mid-range decks are the most skill intensive, or like, I really think that, this sort of insert thing here could be like really helpful for me. What do you think of that? And just come prepared to ask, really anything that you have in your mind to work with them. I think it's like a really good spot to be. The things not to ask are things like how to win, how do I get to the Pro Tour, that sort of thing, where it's like not wanting to like result, like not wanting processes, is wanting the answer, is like an example of like the only kind of bad question. I don't know how you feel about that, but
No, so I listen to a Smash podcast called Tweak Talks. It's by one of my favorite Smash coaches, Tweak, like the literal second best player in all of Smash Ultimate, and some other players and commentators and players, and they did a whole episode on things not to ask your coach. Like they just straight up were like, we all on Meta5, we're sick of these questions, don't ask these. And they're really similar to the vein that you just said of like, why am I losing? What did I do wrong? Like, that's not I don't know. Like, I mean, like, I can tell you moments if we like did a league together, but like that is not as helpful as like, and also won't give you the gains or the return on your investment that what you just talked about does, right, Mason? Where like, you are going in big strokes, big swaths of like, Mason, you talked about like attacking and blocking stuff. And Mason has actually seen my document that I sent everybody before the first coaching session. That basically the first session is us going through that document. And so like, Mason's like, I give people homework assignments when I'm coaching them. I give you a homework assignment before you even like the first session. Like we're going over this document. And I think that too often people come with it kind of goes back to that, like having an open mind to coaching, the type of things that a coach can help with, where the type of questions that you should be asking your coach are before I give this answer, I want to say I also have a person that I coach that's exactly what Mason just said, where the entire session is just like rapid fire questions that we talk about and break down till they feel like they have an understanding and they go on to the next one. And that's totally fine. But I think that like the biggest gains that you're going to get are those moments where your coach can help you identify either things that you need to improve on or honestly things that you do well. One of the things that I had a coaching session 2 weeks ago, I think it was now, where somebody said they were really bad at something. And after like 10 minutes of talking to them, I was like, I think that this is negative self-talk, and you have a really clear understanding of this specific fundamental that maybe you had a game where that you like. And one of the questions I asked him was like, did you have a game where you lost because of this? And they said, yeah, that's why I think I'm bad at it. It was like, it might have just been a moment. Like, you do not have this specific problem. And I think...
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
About that?
Yeah.
I went through this earlier, but the moment kind of passed. In that particular, that is why I love VOD reviews so much, is because in VOD review, you can stop when you're talking to somebody, talk about what they think they would now, and maybe they have all the right words and stuff, and like they understand the concept. In the past, they just made a mistake. And that doesn't mean that they were stupid, or it doesn't mean anything. That just means they made a mistake and like had a problem back then. And doing a VOD review and talking through it with someone is really great, because one thing that can happen with some people is they get anxious and they sort of default to your opinion. And then if you talk through it with somebody and they do that, then you get to see how they did in the past. And a lot of players who you're going to go to for coaching are good enough to sort of for why you made that sort of play before. And it could be like, a false judgment or just a mistake or whatever. But that's just to say that, like Spencer said, losing one match does not mean you're dumb. Losing the matchup once does not mean it's bad, right? Like if you got something like in a coaching or in like a testing environment, people would laugh at you. And it is true here. Just because you lost one doesn't mean you're wrong or you're bad or you didn't understand it, or you're dumb, I should say, didn't understand something. And now you have a chance to learn from it. So I think that's really great. Sorry to cut you off there, Spencer. I meant to mention it earlier. And
I don't think you cut me off at all. And I think that you kind of hammered home my last point on this one. So we have a couple of quotes that Mason and I put in here that I want to cover rapid fire really quick. The first one is, your coach is a personal trainer, not steroids. Mason, what do you mean by this?
Yeah, so this is something I tell basically everyone I coach in some variation or another. But, my job is to like help teach you these concepts and these ideas. And I send you out into the real world, much like our personal trainer teaches you how to work out, how to eat, how to exercise, how to live your life, and that sort of thing there to help you. I can't play the games for you. I can't win the tournament for you. I cannot do those sort of things. What I can do is set you up for success and give you the tools, and you have to put work in too. And that is, I think, is one of the biggest parts of this. It's just like getting coaching is good. It is helpful. We're saying a second here that I truly believe. It requires a lot of work from you too. It isn't just some magic thing to make it happen, and it isn't going to solve all your problems. It's going to show you sort of the first step in this long journey to climb the mountain that is competitive MTG.
Well, I think that we also mentioned a lot of things that you might hear from a personal trainer, like accountability, process. Like I think we talked about gains. We talked about Abe Save Me. Like, what? Am I missing any?
No, I mean, I think that just overall understanding that relationship is not right. Coaching is not. It's quite literally not a shot in the arm. Coaching is something where you're working with someone who can help you do a better job of getting the results you want, but you still have to be the one who goes out and gets the results that you want, right? We're going to help you set up the process, but you're going to be the one out there doing the work to get the results. What we can do is help you get there, but we can't do it for you.
Yeah, Mason, your next quote kind of leads into this. A good session can save you actual months of playing Magic.
Yeah, if you have a good session with a coach, and this is something that somebody said to me, like if you have a good session with a coach, it can literally save you months of time, right? Like if you're out there on your own trying to grind it, you might be able to figure this out, where eventually maybe some podcast sort of talks to it, sort of figure it out. But if you have a good session where they're sort of, you're having a good rapport, you're talking back and forth, something that they're knowledgeable about, we're able to help you understand, that can literally save you months and months of time of playing Magic. And it's something that I truly believe, and that's why one of the things that, like if I didn't think coaching was actually helping people, I just wouldn't do it. I had a pretty good job and like a pretty good life. Like I wouldn't be doing this full time if I thought it was like not actually being able to help people. And I think, it's not helping them in the same way that a firefighter does, but enjoying your hobby more and like enjoying the time you're relaxing and helping someone succeed at their goals is super awesome. And a good session can save someone, at minimum, I would argue, a month of playing Magic by themselves. So,
it's funny. I think about one of the old goals of the CSMTG Patreon, and actually how I started MTG coaching, is one of the $25 tier. You used to get an hour session with me. And I remember the first time somebody qualified for the Pro Tour after we were doing that. I remember the first time somebody won a PPDQ after they were doing that. And, they're hitting these goals, and then there are times where somebody thanked me or thanked the podcast. It was like, that's not how it works. This process-oriented, results-driven thing is you are adopting a process and you're getting results. And I think what Mason just said it really hits that on the head. The next quote is mine, and that is, a coach is not a playtesting partner. I don't know about you guys, but I've had a lot of people that are like, oh, I'm just looking for somebody to do this X with me. And it's like, okay, I mean, I can do that. I don't know what you're going to get out of it other than, I don't know. It can help. I think that what a lot of people think that when they're looking for a playtesting partner out of coach are actually looking for a soundboard. They're actually looking for somebody to bounce ideas off of, ask questions to have somebody in a similar mindset that can challenge them, they're not actually looking for a playtesting partner. And I think that those two things are very different, and you should not equate them when approaching an MTG coach.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, when you look at it in relation to that other quote about your coach being your personal trainer and not steroids, is they're also not your workout buddy, right? Like, if you're going to get the most out of your coaching relationship, they are going to be your personal trainer. And that can mean sometimes that they're, assisting you with a workout, or they're helping you stay on track, and they're assessing, where you're at. But, what you should expect is not someone who's going to be that for you, right? What they're there to do is to set you up for success and let you go succeed, not necessarily be like the core contact of when you're actually putting in the work.
I'll say this. My last playtesting session with Patrick O'Boyle, shout out, was multiple hours, very heads down, you could not pay me enough to do that for you. Especially to get because part of it is a playtesting partner is somebody who has the exact same goals as you, the exact same wants and desires, and that's how you get the most out of a playtesting session. A coach is not going to have that. They just won't. They don't have the same goal as you. They're not. I mean, they're invested in your success, but I don't know. I just think that there's a misconception there. That is going to do it for our main topic, though. Anything you guys want to add on before we move on to the Patreon question? Mason?
I think that if you've maybe you've listened to this podcast and you thought about doing it before, and you're interested in what to do and where to go forward, just really really take a moment and think about okay, what are my short-term goals? What are my long-term goals? And what am I wanting from coaching? And when you can answer those three questions, go to whoever you want to go to and be like, hey, these are my goals. Do you think you can help? And if so, how would you help with these? And, if you're unsure about doing coaching after that still, try and do that and try and find somebody. And there's probably somebody out there that can help you with something. So.
All right. One of the benefits of being a patron on patreon.com/ccmtg is you get access to our Patreon question, and that includes our bonus episodes with the mailbag. So if your question doesn't get answered on the show, it's guaranteed to be answered in a mailbag episode for the bonus episode. This week's question, though, comes from On It Boss. Is that how that is set? Is that On It or Oni Boss?
Oni Boss.
Oni Boss. What are good snacks to bring to a tournament? You know what's funny? I'm a huge snack on cheese guy, string cheese or but that does not work on a tournament setting at all. So I'm a beef jerky and a granola bar type of guy. What about you, Abe?
Yeah, I was gonna say beef jerky, S tier for sure, although a bit pricey. Trail mix is good. Really just it's got to be that right mix of not too heavy. Definitely something that's gonna make you crash, but also not so light that you're like, why did I even eat this?
I've heard a lot of people complain about eating an apple or an orange at a tournament and then actually getting a sugar high. It feels like we eat too much sugar for that to be true, but I have heard that complaint.
Oh, I mean, I crash at work after eating an apple with my lunch because I just get so tired that I would keep sugar low.
Yeah, I have never tried fruit in the middle of a Magic tournament, but I have heard it breeds bad results.
Mason? How about you, Mason?
Yeah. A similar thing to caffeine. I no longer drink caffeine, but I can tell you that a big thing that happened to me before in Magic tournaments is I would crash around round 6, I would say, whatever. I get these massive headaches and I'd have to go to or something. Quitting caffeine cold turkey is going to help you there. But that's thing that I notice happen to people. I think a good snack type is granola bars, Cliff bars are a thing that I always sort of bring. And then just the trail mix and stuff like that. Honestly, just things that are going to help you stay trade like I'm so tired. Keep you energized and full the whole time. So yeah, that is where I stand on it. So
yeah, I would also say like this isn't part of the question, but I also sometimes Magic players will go like really heavy on their lunch in like the middle of like a 10-round event, and I would encourage you not to do that as part of this. Snacking can help with that, but like the number of people that I've seen like, you know, pound like multiple hot dogs and like a soda and like, I'm like, what are you doing? So yeah,
I'd almost rather fast.
Honestly, I know a lot of people that just don't eat lunch at Magic tournaments. They just like will snack throughout the day and then just like have a big dinner. And I actually think that's just a better way to go. So, really enjoy YouTube comments. Sorry, I'm just like jumping ahead. One of the ways that you can get on the show is leaving a YouTube comment with a question or a comment. This one I really liked specifically because of the type of episode it was. It says, really enjoyed the podcast, especially as a primary broke arena player. I found these insights and a way of viewing a format. So I want to cover something that the power rankings started really early on in constructive criticism, and we don't really talk about it when we do these episodes all the time. But the reason that we do it the way we do is actually based off of an old Frank Karsten article on a way of ranking decks, and we took that article and we changed the formula a little bit to give players like the top 5 decks to prepare for during PTQ season week to week. And we used to do the power rankings every single week. And we would talk about them, and they would be format specific to the current format of whatever the PTQ season was. And the reason that we did this is I wanted to make one of the original goals of constructive criticism was like, I want to make a podcast that I listen to and I feel somewhat more prepared for my next PTQ. Right? And obviously the training grounds and this main topic, the style that we have of the training grounds has evolved the podcast quite a bit. But I do actually think the way that we do power rankings actually tells a real story, unlike things like MTG Goldfish data. Even I'll be honest, I think the way that we do it is more beneficial than even what Frank Karsten does now of just presenting you with raw data of like win percentage, because I don't think that it takes everything into consideration.
Yeah, I think the powering episodes can be really good. I'm really glad they're helpful, and I think it's a good way to sort of get conversations started in a way that maybe would not normally come up if you were just going over goldfish or the different things. It sort of gives you context for what's going on, which I think is, as you might guess, key.
Yes, it is. I agree. Anything you want to say on that before we move on, Ib?
No.
No. All right. If you want to join the conversation, don't forget that you can join the Patreon Discord or the public Discord. Both the public Discord links are usually in the show notes. Patreon Discord is for patrons of $5 or more. You also hit us up on Twitter or in the YouTube comments. Don't forget to check out the rest of the network. We do a podcast every month for Arena Mythicast. And then Sam Black's podcast on drafting archetypes is every week and available everywhere you can get a podcast. Like, sub, and review. Those are the best way to support the show without doing it monetarily. Those reviews and those comments, likes, they all really do add up. Like, we're not just saying that. That is literally the best way to get the podcast shared, and we appreciate every single one of them. Mason, if people want to find you, where can they do it?
You can find me over on Twitter at Mason E. Find me at twitch.tv/TheMasonClark. Find me each and every week over on Card Kingdom, writing about something. This week it is all about the Lord of the Rings cards. And you can reach out to me for coaching via Twitter and DMs, or you can also email me, masonclark@gmail.com, and we can sort of get the ball and conversation going if that is something you are interested in.
Hey, what about you?
People can find me over at twitter.com/morenothings, or you can you can DM me there or email me at morenothings@gmail.com if you want to set up something for coaching. I know we just talked a lot about it, but yeah, if there's something you're interested in, just let me know.
Yeah, you can hit me up at Spencer13H on Twitter. You can find the podcast at CCMTG, and you can. I think Mason is like basically full, and
No, I have more room.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
All right. I was gonna say hit up Abe because I am full right now. Just with my new job and stuff, can't take up more coaching stuff right now. If you are interested, SpencerHowland@gmail.com is the best way to reach me. Abe, what did you learn on the show this week?
I learned we used to do power rankings every week.
Yeah, that was actually somebody's job on the podcast. Like, their entire job was to make those every single week.
Oh my god. I'm so glad we don't do that, because I really do feel like by getting a bigger view and a bigger draw, like, I mean, just this episode that we did last week.
There used to be an SEG and a challenge every single week.
Right. I mean, the format turn was a lot faster. but I will say that, like, being able to look at that level of event and also not being so bogged down in just that.
I mean, the show also used to be almost 2 hours every week.
See, these are things. I'm in the correct era of CCMTG for me. That's what I learned on the show this week.
Mason, what about you?
I learned. How do I say this? It was a really good episode. I think sort of seeing how to verbalize and explain, I think, a lot that we all had in a very similar place, but in ways that I had not thought about that before. And I think, being a full-time coach, being able to explain ideas and concepts in different ways when someone maybe isn't getting it is super important. And having this sort of conversation today was very helpful in that way.
I learned that I'm wrong, and Mason hasn't seen my two-way interview document. So we'll be sending that out for the episode. Thank you everybody so much for listening. We'll see everybody next time on another episode of Constructed Criticism.